Yay.
Seems to be working.
Cool.
Well, good. So, so an ad for Games Workshop is hiring like a coordinator, like a content coordinator who's going to decide like what is Games Workshop and what isn't, because they're obviously having trouble already managing the studios and people that are producing their animations and their licensed materials and stuff. So literally this person is going to be like, that bolter's too small, that helmet needs to be bigger, those eyes should be farther apart on the Mark 7 armor. But they don't have that. I mean, that's the thing. They've got hundreds of employees and they're going to do an outside hire for... That was really surprising. So it does seem like the corporate thing, and maybe the Hasbro guy, like he's got this momentum going for, we got a license. This is a huge property. And they're like, wait, what exactly is this now? Like they have decades of this amazing lore and they still don't know, like, what does it look like? What does it sound like? It's very funny.
I see what you're saying. My only question would be, is this specifically for, like, I'm going to say non-game media, right?
I'm not sure.
It might be for... it also might be like, we've got that. That person only does like books or whatever, and now we've added how much extra stuff, and this is bigger than a one-person job. This person's got to have help.
Yeah, it's not, people were reading it or interpreting it as it's for Warhammer Plus because they said you're a liaison with our partners or whatever for producing things. So they must just be... all they need to do is put the character models, put everything on their community page, and just have the fans go, that sucks, this is good.
Yeah, well, okay, true. But I've not gotten that much feedback on stuff, and the feedback I do get is generally decent. But I mean, like, okay, looking at like Reddit or whatever, you really want to open it up to fans and be like, all the be is like, this sucks, we don't like this, we hate this, do better, blah, blah, right? Like, you're not going to get constructive stuff, right?
Yeah, but at least you'll get a feel, because you're going to get that on Twitter and Reddit anyhow for the stuff you're putting out after you've already spent the money.
That's fair. Social media is geared to do negative
engagement,
machine. Right? It's a hate machine, right? If that's what you're looking for, that's what you're going to get, right?
But that would make it maybe a little more metal. Games Workshop, or at least Warhammer, would go back to an edgier, uglier...
I don't think they will. Yeah. Too many Stormcasts now.
Yeah.
Right? How are you going to dirty up that armor?
That's
Although,
right.
you know what?
Oh.
I have been following the Turn-Up 28
indie
wargaming movement. I've seen some converted Stormcasts for Turn-Up 28. Basically, Turn-Up 28 is Napoleonic era, but post-apocalyptic. And the apocalypse was some horrible vegetable-ish growth.
Oh, nice.
Has taken over everything.
Yeah.
That's why it's Turn-Up 28. So it's like you've got like muskets and like Napoleonic era stuff with kind of chaosy looking root tuber dudes, right? Oh. So that's why I'm like Stormcast Eternals, and someone has grungied them up, and there's all these like growths popping out of the armor and stuff. So you can do it.
Yeah. There is that whole like grimdark painting movement where just make all your models crusty, like
sludge.
Kind of, the kind of John Blanche look for the illustrations and stuff, which is kind of going back to the original style. But maybe you can't play them in a tournament because
you definitely can. I'm sure you can.
Officially painted. Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. I think we're good for this week. Hey, how's it going? Salim is on, and Joe is here. Hey, Joe, our faithful mod.
Ooh, nice.
How's it going, Salim? So, our weekly live stream. Let's make this thing happen. If I can bring up my notes.
Just wing it.
Yeah, that's right. I'll just it's a lot of like wait. It was all right. All right. Welcome to the weekly. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Chris.
And another special announcement at the beginning of this. We have another patron.
Ooh! That still doesn't look like smoke when it first comes up. It's like
it doesn't. It's like a burning,
stirred up silt from the bottom of a lake or something.
Right.
It's good though. Sorry.
So Matthew Robinson, who's been in the chat a lot, is now an influencer on Patreon. So thank you so much, Matthew. So occasionally, if you see us turn to the camera and kind of wait for a signal from Matt, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So he may change some of our opinions from time to time. We have a direct line now.
I'm sorry, I've been told that I don't hate.
That's right. Yeah, 5e. That is an amazing system.
Right.
So this week on the weekly, Cthulhu board game,
Oh.
because the world needs another one of those.
Yep.
Myth and Goal is canceled.
Yeah.
Spelljammer races confirmed, and an indie horror bundle on itch.io. So let's start with the Call of Cthulhu is going to get a co-op board game, which I think Fantasy Flight has kind of handled. Every iteration of that is possibly done.
Oh,
But
why? How did I forget all those boxes of Arkham Horror I had?
Right.
Yeah.
But this is Chaosium. So Chaosium and Peterson Games are working on Call of Cthulhu Terror Paths. So it's a cooperative board game set in the Call of Cthulhu universe. So this is, Sandy Peterson, the co-designer of original Call of Cthulhu, and in a quote said, this is kind of his, his return to working with Chaosium and his contribution to the 40th anniversary of the game. Okay. So instead of doing some other books or supplements, they're working on this game. So it's been done a lot. Like they really like Fantasy Flight, and with their little Cthulhu mythos or
Arkham Horror.
So they've been rolling out all kinds of all kinds of board games set in this world. So I wonder what they're going to do differently, or if it's going to have enough of an old school or original Call of Cthulhu flavor that it may feel different.
I'm wondering what that would be.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think artwork, if you get away from the slicker, artwork of like Fantasy Flight and make it just rougher and maybe, I don't know, like, handouts and stuff like, things, like more items, because it is a board game. You can put a ton of paper in there. So instead of it just being cards and minis, have it be, more classic board game looking. And I don't know. Yeah.
If it's, I wonder. I do like that games are not all the time, but I do like. Sorry, let me start that over again. Speaking of influences, it seems like a lot of games are going more towards the co-op or solo route, which I appreciate because, hey, sometimes it's difficult to get people over to play, and games are a lot more attractive where I go, I can still play that by myself, right? It's a little bit sad, but I mean, it's a viable option, right? Like, especially because of the pandemic, you can't hang out with people. You can be like, I can still use this product. It's not going to sit in my shelf as another box of shame with all the other things that I have, right? But I don't know, like you said about Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, what can you
been done, right? But I also wonder, like, if co-op, if you have all these like handouts and stuff, does that mean someone would kind of have to act like a GM?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, if there was some sort of management, like a resources and information. Yeah, that's true. So the description of it is the players will attempt to complete objectives while trying to keep track of the rising doom that acts as a timer through the game. So we've had doom tracks and things before. Each investigator has their own abilities and equipment. Players can act and move simultaneously as they try to complete their scenarios. Players can approach each scenario as an individual story or part of an overarching campaign. So it sounds, pretty much like what we've played before.
I kind of wonder if, had they... No, maybe I'm thinking of some kind of version of Pandemic, right? Because Pandemic is something that kind of pops into my head. Just as a decent game, right? A co-op thing where you're trying to control multiple outbreaks and really appropriate for today's situation. I thought they had done like not a fantasy, but like a zombie-ish, kind of more horror-themed one. And maybe this is something similar, right?
Yeah, we'll have to see. So Peterson said the design is done, and I consider Call of Cthulhu my personal contribution to the 40th anniversary. And so I guess the kind of motive is here in this statement. I look forward to introducing new players to the horror of Lovecraft's tales with a fast and easy-to-play board game. It also adds depth and detail to fascinate even the most experienced players. So maybe something a little less daunting than the basic role-play percentile-based Call of Cthulhu role-play. Like, well, that was really fun, and we were kind of playing our investigators. What's next? Yeah, so that may be a good gateway or in to the RPG. But so Peterson left in. So after Call of Cthulhu was released in '81, he started working on computer games. So Doom, Age of Empires, So this is a return to the tabletop. So happy 40th for Call of Cthulhu. Yeah, so both RuneQuest and Call of Cthulhu are having big anniversaries. So, well, speaking of things that never happened, almost happened, kind of happened.
Not really.
So we got a really strange letter.
It was a bit weird.
Yeah, posted on the Kickstarter for Myth and Goal. So Myth and Goal came up because we were talking about fantasy football sports, and I forwarded you a link, and just because we were talking about it, I was like, oh, look, there's a new Kickstarter that is this exact same thing. So
horrible enabler.
Yes. So Blacklist Miniatures, the guys that do, they've done previous board games, and they just recently, I think they're still fulfilling it actually in North America, but did a fantasy series of generic figures, and maybe give you a little bit of a idea. So just a huge set. So this is 201 miniatures, and it was only $65 for this,
which is,
like, pledge level. Yeah. So
yeah,
I'm suspecting this may have contributed to why they canceled things.
I think so.
Yeah. So a combination of maybe people not being completely satisfied with the structure of the Kickstarter, the rules and playability of the game, and then how cheap they wanted to have the miniatures, because people weren't maybe looking at, and they didn't, that wasn't an option. You like had to just like strip the miniatures out of the board game. There wasn't like miniatures only,
right? And
they also offered a standee version, which was a little confusing because they are a miniatures company.
Right. From what I hear, because I backed Myth and Goal, and then they got that cancellation thing, and I was kind of like, oh, part of the reason I backed it was, okay, there was a game attached to it, Myth and Goal, and I kind of went, oh, okay, maybe it'll be good, maybe not. But I look at the number of miniatures, and it was like, they were smart when they put it together, because Myth and Goal only used 8 minis per side.
Right.
But they gave you 2 of each version of mini for a total of 16 for each of them, partially because you could draft free agents in the game. Also partially because that meant the teams would work with other fantasy football games, like Blood Bowl, right? You would end up with 16 dwarves, 16 elves, 16 lizardmen, right? And that's why I backed it. I went, even if Myth and Gold, the game, isn't great, that's 7 Blood Bowl teams.
Right.
And you said that Blacklist Miniatures did pretty decent miniatures, and that made me go, okay, they're not going to be the hard plastic. They'll probably be a little bit of the kind of PVC, soft PVC stuff, but based on the other stuff the mini has done, or the miniatures company has done, I'll back it.
Right.
But the message that put out, and it had blown through its funding goal.
Yeah.
Also, I thought the standee version was a decent touch, right? Like it's kind of aimed at the board gamers rather than the mini gamers, right? Like I don't want to pay 160 something bucks for this deluxe version or the standard version. Cardboard figures work just as well. That's $50.
Right.
I'll do that. But I'm not exactly sure why they canceled it. It was a bit kind of opaque. Something about they weren't happy with how things were going together. But I know it was 2 companies.
Yes.
Blacklist and
Needy Cat.
Yes, Needy Cat Games.
Right,
so Needy Cat Games did the actual game, and Blacklist did the miniatures. And maybe someone somewhere in there was unhappy, but it was a bit like there was 1 day left in the Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
And every stretch goal had funded. So I mean, like, totally within their prerogative to cancel it because this didn't meet expectations. But they, and I guess they didn't have to because whatever, they didn't really clearly lay out what expectations those were, I felt, and what hadn't gotten met.
No, that's true. But I'm suspecting that production costs are going up for miniatures. And
definitely.
probably for all the board game components. So if they just doubled their goal, that's like, well, we needed more of a success. And I think they were banking on, Needy Cat is actually, one of the designers in Needy Cat is James M. Hewitt. So he previously worked on the 2016 Blood Bowl reboot, the Blitz Bowl kind of, and this seemed, Myth and Goal seemed a little bit more like Blitz Bowl, kind of a stripped down.
Size,
stripped down. And also Dread Bowl for Mantic. So quite a pedigree of fantasy sports games. So I think they were hoping that pedigree and then the affordability and number of miniatures was really going to push it over, and something just didn't work. And I really am suspecting, though, because they're behind on fulfillment for this. There's already a series 2 that's been fulfilled for but
not shipped.
Yeah, but not shipped.
Because I see a series 1 right
here. This is all series 1. So series 2 hasn't shown up, and I don't think 1 is even in North America yet. It's still in the distribution centers. So they may be running into this because this all happened. They did 2 Kickstarters in 2020 for these guys, or maybe 2021 for Series 2, beginning of the year. But I think they're realizing, we're going to start getting behind because they still haven't.
I guess so. And I've never run a Kickstarter. I probably never will because it's daunting. But yeah, everywhere prices of absolutely everything are going up. And I think it's one of those things like, we're just going to have to adapt to this is the new reality. I kind of wonder why the people behind Myth and Goal didn't go due to
yes
rising prices, increased production thing.
Right.
This smashed its funding goal. The delays are going to be atrocious because of whatever we and just say we're no longer comfortable with the kind of product we could deliver to you or the time frame or whatever. So we're going to push it back. Like that would have made a little more sense to me, but I guess they can say whatever they want, right?
Right. And the other strange thing in that letter was that it may not come back to Kickstarter. They're not.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, they're not gearing up. They're not saying, okay, we're gearing up for a real, we're going to hit it hard and we're going to do it right this time. They're saying we're looking at other options. So they may just go direct distribution, direct to market, which may help them control things, costs and things a little bit better because then they don't have to go through the usual fulfillments that, and
or they could do like Hasbro, make your own.
Yeah, right. And also then they can restructure it. They can put like 2 teams in the box and then sell the other teams. Maybe
that was it.
Yeah, and maybe because everything was so lumped together, maybe that Kickstarter just didn't satisfy enough people, and so there was a lot of frustration with how they'd set it up. So we'll see. And I'll put a link to, if you'd like to follow their announcements and things, I'll put a link to the Blacklist Games kind of updates for this, but they do good stuff. I mean, it's a little generic, and that's kind of why I like the fantasy stuff because it works. Whatever we were going to play, but they did a lot of nice materials. I don't know if they have it on the box, but they did like clear green for the gelatinous, the slimes and everything, and blue for the elementals. That's cool. So they do, their attention to detail and everything is really nice on these minis, and just to give you an idea of like what 201 minis. So this is what arrived for that first Kickstarter for $65.
That's massive.
Yeah, so
not knowing they did this, maybe who knows? Maybe people were complaining about Myth and Goal, going, "This was $65 bucks.
Right.
Why is this?" But there's no game in here.
Right. There's no game. Yeah.
Right. Like you got a board, cards, all kinds of like tokens and stuff for Myth and Goal. So who knows?
Something interesting there. Maybe Blacklist does. They're based in LA, so maybe they're having trouble focusing because even this Kickstarter, they had an original board game that they produced, and they're like, "Oh, okay, now we make cards for all the monsters in here to work with this other board game." And you're just like, "Wait, what? I don't have that game." Okay, but you can buy that game. Okay, but is it? I don't know anything about that game. So they did the same thing, and then with Fantasy 2, they released a book called Lasting Tales, which is a narrative-based kind of miniature skirmish game to use the miniatures. So it's like it's this and something, and for if you're just like, wow, I want cheap minis, but what else is going on here? It's a little they just confuse.
Maybe they could have structured it. Maybe they could have structured it better because I kind of. The way GW is like a miniatures company that also makes rules, right? And we're kind of seeing what I feel is like a rise in like system agnostic or miniature agnostic rule
sets,
where it's like, we're just going to make the rules, use whatever you want. I could see a company kind of doing both. Like, we're focusing mainly on the minis,
right?
But if you also want to play a game, we make it. Right? So,
and it's a nice way to reincorporate or reuse terrain miniatures and different furniture miniatures. Like they produce things for a board game, I said, but these would also work as terrain for your miniatures, and especially if it's miniatures agnostic, you get a lot of mileage out of a little bit of mini. So we'll see what's going to happen. And so Series 2 is on its way. I have no idea when, but it seems like Asia gets it first. Like Oceania is getting it.
Got to be honest.
Yes,
I was slightly like. A bit like, whew, when Myth and Goal canceled. A little bit, because I was like, I don't feel so bad about my like $100 Amazon team now, right? That I bought, right? Because that's coming. So like I did kind of wonder, am I doing the War Machine Hordes thing again, where with 7 teams I can get a whole bunch of people into Blood Bowl,
right?
And no one's going to join, right? And then I have 7 teams staring at me, right?
They made the pennants and everything.
Exactly, right? So I was interested in the game. It did look a little bit small, and I think it was less fiddly apparently than Blood Bowl. Right. And it did have a solo version, right, which is also part of what attracted me to Myth and Goal. Where I'm like, even if no one else plays, I can still get a team through a season by myself. But it was a bit like, whew, I think I spent a bit too much money all at once, and not having to pay that is a little bit of a relief.
Right. Yeah. So we'll see how this comes back and what kind of price points and stuff. If they can do it as a miniatures included, like $50 game, that might be a little bit more enticing for people to try a system. Even with an experienced designer that they can trust knows how to make those kind of games, that you don't have to worry about it. Interesting thing though, on that Kickstarter that I'm starting to see more and more now is they're doing the virtual, so you don't play test the game, like board games especially. You can't play test them with print and play very easily. So the components are in the
virtual tabletop.
The virtual tabletop software. So they just have those assets that you can download and try it out. So many people said, the game's fun. We played it virtually. So
I tried to watch some playthroughs of Myth and Goal, and some were kind of unlistenable, but all of them were on the virtual tabletop, which, you know what? Again, with the pandemic and people not being able to meet in person, makes sense. Where these two hosts are on opposite sides of the world, and they're talking to a third person, the designer of the game, who's in a different place, and they're still able to play. So
that's a great it's a great tool, and I'm glad nobody has kind of clamped down too hard. You can play just about anything on there, from Warhammer to any RPG. There's a lot of kind of fan-made content for just about any RPG, like the maps and everything to play Alien or whatever. So I'm really surprised. It's not officially supported, but it's a really nice platform. Yeah. So we're getting some idea of what 2022 and 23 are going to look like for 5e. So a public playtest.
Oh, really? I hadn't heard of the announcement. Okay.
Yeah, so a public playtest has revealed a new set of 6 playable races, and all of these are from the Spelljammer setting.
Giant space hamster.
Yes, right, exactly.
Which I never ran into in Spelljammer, right? To be fair, I only had one Spelljammer book. It was the Astromundi cluster that I had gotten from Toys R Us. And I'm like, this is pretty cool. There are no giant space hamsters in here. So I kind of missed that bit of Spelljammer. Right. And a lot of people complain, like, oh, this is so dumb. I'm just like, so just leave it out.
Right. Anyway. Well, now's your chance. So, the new Travelers of the Multiverse Unearthed Arcana will now let you play Astral Elves, Autognomes, Gifts, Hadizes, Plasmoids, and Thri-Kreen. So Thri-Kreen was the one I immediately recognized from Dark Sun. Yep. Yeah. So,
GIF?
Oh, maybe GIF. Well, it's the eternal, the eternal armor. Yeah, the
GIF
eternal
armor. Or the GRIF. Because are we talking about the hippo people?
Yes, that's the little hippos. So that is getting people excited about, wow, are they going to re-release? Because they're talking about there's 2 or 3 settings that they're going to be releasing before this anniversary thing that they do. So what are those? And the other thing that this is making people wonder about is, okay, but these races also are, Planescape, Dark Sun. So what's going to happen? Are they going to literally just take all their space and alternate planes and just kind of cram them together into one setting, one source book?
Maybe. I mean, they might. And you know what? Okay, fine. But my thought is, okay, I really liked Planescape 2E. But it was both literally and figuratively the hub of the multiverse, right? The whole set was here's a door, a city of all these doors, and you can go anywhere and everywhere in the D&D multiverse with this thing, right? So why not? Right? And plus, would you want them to? Okay, if you're a purist, sure, break everything out into its own little setting. Right. But why not go, hey, all those things you like? Here's kind of a sampler pack of it in this book.
Oh, yeah, and it's behind the door. Choose whichever door.
Yeah, and wouldn't that introduce people to I never really considered this, but oh, cool, look at that. Let's try that setting when it comes out.
Yeah, and it would also give people excuses if they're going into other planes of existence. This is the non-combat kind of romance world, then
play a different fucking game.
No, but it seems like they're going toward that to want, being able to kind of break that up a little bit. So it may be some settings they can push things other ways, but I don't know. I'd really like to see just a pure Dark Sun release with all of those setting materials and the bestiary and everything.
Yeah,
but we'll see. But other conspiracists are saying this could mean a Star Frontiers reboot, because as we saw from the quote TSR Inc., they were claiming the rights to Star Frontiers that they were going to release. So Star Frontiers was released, it was first published So Spelljammer was first published in '89. Where was my Star Frontiers?
I think Star Frontiers was before that.
Yeah, it was. It was and so many of those races were just kind of ported over. So the 4 of those 8 races that are now in that playtest had other names, but were originally introduced in Star Frontiers.
Am I misremembering there also something called like Dragon Star?
Oh, maybe Drakon, yeah.
Maybe, I can't remember.
So the Plasmoids, Hadazes, and Thri-Kreen appeared in this, so that they became canonical in D&D through Spelljammer, but were originally, they're reused from Star Frontiers. So the equivalents, let me see the little list here. Yeah, so reskinned versions of those three races. Yeah, I lost my date here, but yes, so Star Frontiers was, much before. And they were just kind of reusing and maybe incorporating into canon.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I have never read Star Frontiers. I know about it. It seemed to me kind of a D&D Star Wars / Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure that's what it was kind of inspired by.
Right. To kind of use the that rule set or what people were already doing, but give them, this is pure sci-fi. Yeah, I don't have a good...
Except for these people with psychic mind powers.
Right, yeah, all the science.
That work exactly the same way as spells do, because really they're the same goddamn thing. Heck, if you want to get technical about it, that Asimov quote, fancy technology is just might as well be goddamn magic.
Right. Yeah. To the more primitive minds. Yeah, so the Alpha Dawn box for Star Frontiers was released with those 4 races: humans, Vrusk, Yazurians, and the Dracolites, which are basically the a plasmoid race and the flying race. So the more iconic ones I think came later, but that first box introduced things that way. So we'll see what. That brings up so if they're not going to do Star Frontiers, they're not going to do Dark Sun, they're not going to do Spelljammer. It's specifically, are they just going to merge outer space and cosmic all into one kind of thing?
I mean, unless they change the way the universes work, like they completely rearrange the planes from 4E to 5E, and they'd even rearrange them from 2E or 3E to 4, whatever. Like I believe in Spelljammer, it was like the crystal sphere kind of theory, where if you went up high enough, you eventually broke through or exited the crystal sphere, and every solar system was its own little crystal sphere kind of thing, and you spelljam between those 2 spots. So with Spelljammer, you could go anywhere. Yeah, right. Yeah. So I have no problem with saying, "Hey, this is all mixed together," because it was already all fucking mixed together, right?
Right. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle this. That leaves a lot of big question marks if they're going to do 2 or 3 settings. I guess we already know one of those is Dragonlance. Yeah. So that eliminates maybe all of this is going to come up under.
So I know there are Dragonlance fans, but it's like also I've never read that, so maybe they're actually quite interesting. So you've got the boring one, right? And then we've got these other interesting ones that are not Tolkien-esque, right?
So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
For my thoughts on Dragonlance, which I'm sure I'm being horribly unfair. I've never read them, but it just kind of looked more standard-y kind of stuff, which...
With dragons.
Yeah.
With
which are somehow missing from other bog standard fantasy, right?
Leaning on heavy into dragons.
I mean, the game is called Dungeons and right? So.
Right. Yeah, so they're going to just keep teasing us with all of this stuff until... And, we know that they have no problem with saying, okay, that was just for playtesting. We're not going to do that. So
but you know what? Away. Again, I'm fine. I mean... Again, I don't really play D&D, but I'm fine with that. Like, that's what a playtest is for them to go, you know what? Not enough people were interested in that, or you know what? We messed it up, or that throws off something else with the game, so sorry.
Yeah, and with the wonders of the internet, that means that stuff is out there forever. So if you didn't, if it was released by Wizards of the Coast in some form, you can still use it in your games.
Yeah, why not? You can do whatever they want. You want at home, right?
Yes. Definitely. It's all yours. All right. And for the holiday season, for Halloween, we have an indie horror bundle on itch.io. So there was some... so when I was thinking horror, I was like, okay, this is going to be all the, hard to... we're going to try to scare you, creep you out, But it's a great selection of a huge range of kind of what you would define as horror. So the Ttrpg Halloween Spooktacular bundle is curated by Cat Elm and features 10 tabletop role-playing games. So ranging from standalones to ones requiring GMs and some even GM-less.
Oh, cool.
So Cat Elm's own The Vampire Next Door is included, which is inspired by kind of Scooby-Doo, Gravity Falls kind of. So that's not traditionally going to be a slasher film or anything.
That's what I think I'm kind of interested in. From what I understand, it's like a kind of investigative game where the characters you're playing are collecting evidence to prove that, yes, the person next door is Dracula.
Oh, nice. Right. Like Fright Night, right? Yeah. Isn't that? Yeah, nice. And The Walls Will Swallow You by designer Will Uhl is a unsettling psychological horror book. And Laurie O'Connell's Lichcraft, a satirical spin on the nightmares faced by trans people in the UK. Interesting. Yeah, the players... trans characters also happen to be necromancers, which is helpful given the literal centuries they must wait for the NHS waiting list for transgender healthcare. Monkey's Paw Games is contributing The Forest That Knows Your Name. Bar the Windows, Bolt the Doors is another Cabin in the Woods kind of trope, but it's a GM-less game. Alex Furness's Basic Witches and the sci-fi journaling Familiar Unfamiliar,
Ooh, cool.
The Hunted, No Glimmer Through the Night, and There's Ghosts in Their Rooms.
Ooh,
so
nice.
So a pretty nice range of things. That's $20. That gets you $138 worth of games until the end of October. Cool. So just in case you need something for your Halloween session, that should definitely suffice. There's a good range of content. So I'll put a link to that itch.io bundle. Cool. And I think that's all for this week. We've complained about enough.
It wasn't that much complaining, was it? I don't know.
So where can people find you?
On Twitter, as always. That's Hivemind, HYVEMYND, where I'm still doing Tabletop-tober.
Nice.
We're up to day 15. And that last picture, it's real hard to take a pic of minis when your kid is up and awake. So the last picture for today is like a little eye in the background.
Blurs,
just like, no, come on.
Yeah, holding up a camera. Nice.
Cool. So how about you?
So I am still doing a single panel gag cartoon that I draw every week on Monday nights, North American time. And that's Abuse Cartoons. So Abuse Cartoons on Twitch and YouTube. And the archive of that cartoon is on GoComics. So gocomics.com/domestic abuse. And if you'd like to support Upturned Table, like our wonderful influencer, Matthew Robinson, thank you so much for your support. Please visit patreon.com/upturnedtable. We have a bunch of different pledge levels to kind of show us like what you're interested in or what you're supporting.
Is one of those stop talking?
Yeah, right. One of those is just, enough of this. Stop streaming. But things from our lore series or to get involved in kind of telling us what games you'd like to see, what games you'd like reviewed or actual played. And then also just specifically to support Orcus Dorcas supports us as the weakling, the alpha weakling. That's available at Patreon, and you can also visit upturntable.com for all of our content, including subscribing to the audio podcast, and the YouTube channel and everything is accessible from there. And also, so the audio from this, the kind of full uncut audio from this goes up on Patreon. So for as little as $1, you can be a supporter on Patreon and hear the kind of sweetened audio version of this if you don't like listening to YouTube or don't want to hear commercial breaks or whatever. So the uncut audio is on Patreon. And tonight, Alan and I will be discussing some Avatar Legends.
Ooh.
Yeah, so put together kind of a little discussion. So Alan's got a lot of experience with it already. Has done some curated play.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we'll find out a lot of like how that's being supported and what that game is turning out to be from some first-hand accounts, not some second-hand nonsense.
No, I know Alan's really into Avatar. I've actually never watched it, but I am interested in the game just because it's PBTA based.
Yes.
So
that's a big question I have for him is, does that work? Because combat seems like it's a big part of that world. And so, it's,
interesting.
Yeah,
I'll be
curious
about that as well. Cool.
They do. All right. So thank you for joining us. That's all this week.
Later, mortals.
Goodbye.
Bye.
All right.
Oh, perfect timing. All right.
Yes,
I got about,
beautiful.
like 10 minutes to get back to work. So, sweet.
Nice.
Dropbox is full.
Oh, Dolly. Dolly is in the chat.
Oh, nice.
Dolly Mixtures. Hello, hello. Wow.
Listening to us ramble.
Yes, yes. Oh, she misses us, right? Right? She misses having to walk into these conversations and say, oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Oh.
Do you want mine?
Mm-hmm.
I have there's 2 STL. No, sorry, there's 3 zips of STL files. Just 1-page miniatures. I just kind of want to see what the Battle Sister Champion and one of their Alien Hive things look like.
Excellent. Nice.
All supported. I think the folders have both like a completed version, but I don't know how big you can print. And then it's also multiple. Each one has multiple components. I've taken out anything I don't want printed.
Okay.
I'd be interested in seeing the components.
Like okay, cool. Yeah, that's
the broken up version.
Yeah, a lot of the STLs are doing that, so you can customize. Yeah.
Or just like I think it's helpful for people with a smaller print bed, where it's just how am I going to print this thing? When it's
that's true.
Yeah.
We've got one of the smallest.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So I've been doing. I did a whole new. So we're going to be doing Frostgrave too this weekend. So I did I'm not sure what I'm going to go with, but I did a whole new like weird witchy warband. So I had the funky orcs.
Those would look cool.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go with, because we could do like a regular, because we thought about doing the Thaw of the Lich Lord campaign, right? The first scenario of that 10 scenario thing is pretty much just a normal game with a slight wrinkle in the middle.
Right.
But then I was like reading through and I'm like, okay, I'd thought about Thaumaturge. That seems like pushing the cheat button since there's so much undead in that thing where it's just like, if I get like Dispel Undead and all that stuff, I'm like, kind of feel a bit cheap.
Right.
So I might do Enchanter.
Oh, okay.
Instead.
Interesting. Yeah.
So rather than, it's kind of similar, but doesn't have because it's like Dispel Undead, Circle of Protection Undead when playing the Thaw of the Lich. So it's like, really?
Yeah. Well, if we're doing Lich Lord, I'm going to roll for Lichdom every single game. Yeah.
That is an option.
Until I'm like weakened to like, 1 hit point. Level 1 hit point.
We could do that. But cool. Yeah. Anyway, all right. I got to bounce and get back to work. But
cool.
Yeah, we'll definitely at least be talking about Frostgrave next week.
Yes, right. Yeah, and so there should be a stream of that. Hopefully, yeah. If I can get that set up and it's working well, you guys will get to see a little bit of how that's going. And I've got colored lights we can use for the eclipse, so we can change the color of the board as it gets darker.
Cool.
Nice.
All right, I got to bounce.
All right. So I'll take a look in the chat. Oh, nice. Hey, thank you, Joe, for the links for everything. Very cool.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so Patreon and everything. Hey, Lee, how's it going? Oh, nice. Oh, Lee's going to be doing some D&D with some dull friends. Nice. Oh, very cool. All right.
Catch you later.
See you. All right, so let me just catch up with chat. There we go. Yeah. So turns. Yeah, Salim, that's true. Taking turns in cooperative board games is a little, and often in cooperative board games, you always get people that are, they kind of take the lead anyhow. And if they have any experience with the game or the system, they're telling you do this, do that. And so it's not quite cooperative. It's more like follow the leader. Nice. But yeah, very good. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. Very cool. Yeah, so we'll see. So there'll be another live stream tonight. So Alan and I will be talking some Avatar, if you're interested in Avatar. The RPG that just came out, it's Avatar Legends. So that's a Magpie release. So Alan's got some experience playing that, so we'll find out how good or playable it is. And then Saturday, we'll be doing some Frostgrave. So yeah, we've got a couple of new war bands to try out. And so Chris has some of the official North Star minis for Frostgrave, and I'm putting together just whatever I can. So I printed a warband, and then I'm also going to be doing it'll be kind of a random assortment of Mantic and Games Workshop and all kinds of various miniatures for the monsters and enemies. But it should be fun, and it gives me a good excuse. Always I need a date and a kind of deadline to play something, so I get stuff painted. That's always a good excuse. All right, so give me a few seconds here for the sound, the noise reduction. So a moment of silence. All right, there we go. Oh, Salim. Yeah, 3D printing. Yeah, there are a couple of really good Patreons out there that are kind of supporting. You can tell they're obviously supporting certain systems. Like there's guys that support the 10 millimeter, 15 millimeter kind of War Master ranked level minis and the Moment of Zen. And yeah, I my whole warband that I'm doing is done by Knucklebones. So if you look on Patreon under Knucklebones, an awesome artist, and he's not running it like a kind of a blood-sucking business like some of the Patreons are being run. It's just an artist that puts out stuff during the month that he's working on, and it's real old school. It looks like it's all sculpted in wax and has a real old school, like, old world Warhammer, like the very, first edition illustrations and stuff. There's really good stuff. So I can put together both a Frostgrave and a Stargrave team, or even like, some of the sci-fi miniatures look more like Rogue Trader or something. His inspiration, you can tell the inspirations are kind of old school illustration and fantasy illustrations and stuff. His orcs are amazing. So I'm doing all my henchmen are orcs, and I did the one kind of caster wizard looking, and he's got a really good aesthetic and a really good sense of humor about things, and they print really well on my cheap resin printer. So yeah, check out Knucklebones. I think I'm gonna have to start doing that, like do like reviews of printable STL files, because it's becoming more and more common, and we're going to be playing with some of them on the table. So it might be good to review who's doing what and where our stuff comes from, because we talked a little bit when we were doing War Master. Was it Forest Dragon? Forest Dragon does a lot of nice War Master armies. So both of our armies, the undead and the high elves, were from Empire. The Empire teams were from Forest Dragon. So yeah, that should be a thing that we do regularly too, is talk about the kind of the things that are out there, and get some of these people support on their Patreons, because some people run really great, really cheap Patreons, and they're just constantly contributing things, and it's more like what they're interested in, what they're experimenting with. You can tell some of them are people that are organizing. They've got some designers that they're remotely buying 3D works from, and then selling them, like doing themes, and every month is a specific genre or different kind of location or whatever. So they're themes, but you can tell they're kind of being more commercially produced, and of course the cost of those Patrons is much higher. But yeah, so check out Knucklebones on Patreon. That's good stuff. I was really happy. I'm happy with how they print, and they're really unique miniatures, definitely inspired by kind of old school illustrations and stuff. So good stuff. Yeah, so Frostgrave, we're going to try to run that. Terrain, I'm not... The last time we played Frostgrave, we did it for Lego minis. So we've got Lego mini warbands, but that means all of my terrain is Lego mini scale, which is, I don't know what that is, like 40, almost 50 mil. I don't know how tall those things are. Miniatures. So everything's a little too big. I did a lot of ice arches and wooden bridges and stuff, but it's gonna not work well with 28. So we'll see what the table looks like. It's going to be maybe minimalist for this first session, because there's little instruction for the very first session, the first scenario of the Lich Lord. It's just a regular game with an eclipse mechanic. So hopefully we'll get lucky there. And so and because this is the first session, maybe there's going to be some unpainted on the table as well, which is not my favorite, but yeah, just because we're rolling on like random encounter tables and things, so we could just be getting all kinds of random stuff. But yeah, we've got some good miniatures. There'll be some really good miniatures to see, and we'll do some like close-ups and kind of introduce our war bands on the stream, so you can see how things are looking. So yeah, busy weekend. So then I've got OSR on Sunday. Not OSR, but it's Call of Cthulhu. All right. Okay. Well, I think that's going to do it. Yeah, so good to see you, Dolly. And thanks, Salim. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you taking a look. And yeah, so eventually we'll get to some fantasy football once Chris's Amazons arrive and we figure out what rule set we're gonna we're gonna go with. But yeah, and I did an unboxing of all of these miniatures. If you want to see exactly like how these generic fantasy miniatures look and everything, they're PVC plastic, so a little bit better than Boardgame, but not not quite the level of like a Games Workshop or even Mantic. They're kind of Boardgame level, but they're nice. They're nice and crisp as far as detail. And everything in a huge range, so all of your basic monsters. So yeah, I'll put a link. So look for the Blacklist Miniatures Fantasy Series 1 if you want to just find that in our playlist under unboxings. And otherwise, we'll be back next week. I think, yeah, that's all that's scheduled. So yeah, so Alan tonight, so that maybe the timing is going to be early morning for the US, so maybe you'll want to watch that in the archive. I don't know if the live stream is how that's gonna work. And yeah, then Frostgrave on Saturday and Sunday will be unrecorded Call of Cthulhu. Wow. All right, and thanks again, Matthew Robinson. Thank you so much for becoming an influencer on Patreon. It means a lot. It really helps us keep going and keep wanting to improve, upgrade equipment and everything. So it makes things bigger and better. And also, without having to join anything or subscribe to anything, if you just use our link for Drive-Thru-RPG in the description of this stream, that also supports us. So we get a little percentage. It doesn't cost anything, but we get a little percentage of the sale as credit back to us. So that helps us buy things from Drive-Thru-RPG to do for reviews and things. So it's a nice way to support us and help us get additional things to take a look at. And also, if you do that, feel free to recommend either on social media or just an email what you wanted to see, what you'd like to see reviewed, because yeah, that support helps us actually buy those PDFs or even the physical copies. Unfortunately, though, yeah, Drive-Thru just doubled their. We talked about this a few weeks ago. It happened, I think, beginning of August. Drive-Thru-RPG, their premium color now is literally twice the price that it used to be. So, like, I had the Warlock book. So the Warlock book in premium color was $20 for the longest time, and the shipping from England was pretty reasonable. But now it's $40, and I think the shipping is still the same. But yeah, it's literally, the premium color has doubled because of their print-on-demand. Lightning, the company that does the print-on-demand fulfillment, is making them upgrade to, I guess, a nicer machine or a newer machine, and it's just costing that much more. So yeah, that wasn't a good. The timing of that. It seems like the timing of everything, physical goods are not doing well right now with our production costs and cargo. Oh, the overseas shipping prices are getting much higher. So that's not great. But yeah, but that's another way that you can support what we're doing. So if you're interested in the what the Avatar RPG is all about, tune in this evening, this morning, tomorrow morning, possibly for a lot of North America. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be doing a quick live stream and go through all of that. Alan has a lot of experience with the game. He's played several times. Did a curated session with like an official GM, and can tell us a lot about what they're doing with the game. And it didn't quite hit 10,000 or 10 million. I think I was saying 10 million, but it was still like lower than that, but it hit like millions of, maybe not that 10 million, but it was up there. As for tabletop, it was, top of the list. So I guess that IP plus the system, really knocked it out of the park. But, all right, so that's all for this week. So thanks everyone for hanging in, and feel free always at this time to ask more questions in the comments, and I'll go back through the chat and kind of respond to things that were said during the stream, because we didn't want to interrupt the stream itself, because we turn it into a podcast. So feel free to interrupt, ask things as they come up, and then I'll go back at the end of the stream after Chris has to get going and cover everything. So thanks again for watching and listening, and thanks to the Patreon listeners. This will go on to the Patreon RSS, the audio feed of this, and we'll be back next week to do the same thing. Goodbye.